Over the next 30 years, the number of older Americans is expected to double.
They call it the silver tsunami, and it is coming.
Their nest eggs are at risk, targets for scammers.
They're looking for money, and they really don't care what they're doing, obviously, to hurt folks.
I truly believe he would be here today if it weren't for these people. These horrible people.
From identity thefts to phone scams.
They are going to continue to call until they have drained you of every penny.
Tricky mortgage deals and bank products.
You know, you kind of think you're going to trust your bank because they're on your side. Where did we get that idea?
The opportunity for loss is endless, and it's turning some senior lambs to lions.
You do everything you're supposed to do, and somebody's going to come along and just say, I'm taking this and there's nothing you can do about it. I don't think so.
Fleeced, speaking out against senior financial abuse, is made possible through the generous support of Atlantic Philanthropies, dedicated to making lasting changes in the lives of disadvantaged and vulnerable people.
These are the people who persevered, who paid their taxes, who worked harder than anyone else in factories and farms, and created the kind of vibrant economic culture and economy that we now enjoy.
Older Americans. They control upwards of $18 trillion in assets.
This isn't so much about seniors being vulnerable as it is you've got some really top-notch people that are trying, that are unfortunately very capable of taking money from you.
Financial elder abuse is probably one of the largest growing crimes in our country.
It's estimated that 1 in 5 seniors are victims of financial abuse or fraud.
He totally cleaned out his 401k and mortgaged his condo and his house, both his cars.
Of course, I would have given him the house and the whole caboodle.
I thought I was too smart to be scammed, but it doesn't work that way. They caught me, and I have worried and worried myself about it.
They're looking for money, and they really don't care what they're doing, obviously, to hurt folks.
The average loss, almost $150,000 per victim.
They're very good at figuring out how much money you have in your retirement account, how much your house is worth, how much your vehicle's worth. They are going to continue to call until they have drained you of every penny.
Common scams target seniors through the mail, computer, and by telephone.
It's not the locals that are doing this to each other. We're in an international age now. And so these people are coming from far away, other countries.
An international phone scam promising sweepstakes winnings recently targeted seniors in rural Indiana.
Friday, 6:28 a.m.
My father was Jack Liebarger. He died just a few months ago, but he was victim of a scam.
A couple of years ago, our financial advisor said, you know, you really got to talk to your dad. I think he's in trouble.
I will deliver your money today. I just want to say that first before you say anything else, because I know you may be upset. Okay.
Apparently the promise was that, you know, he was going to make money, that if he would send them $5,000, he would make $10,000. They would send him back $10,000 in a month.
I just think these people kept calling him and promising him $1 million, and he kept telling me, I'm going to make money.
We found little tokens that they sent him in thanks for his donation or whatever all over the house. And the more I came across, the angrier I got. And it's just like, what, you know, why are you sending him this junk? And why did you believe it, Dad?
So I want you to do $500 for Patricia Francis and $300 for Elaine. Right. Fine, so we can cover it. You make it hard on me. So I'm not making it hard. I'm going to make everything great, okay, for today, I promise.
You could tell in his voice there, he was so sick. And it was just probably maybe 2 hours later that the people found him collapsed.
I think the stress that he was going through from these people is why he had the heart attack. And then it just got worse.
They're from a generation where they are not expecting to be ripped off on the telephone in particular. They're not as alert to people trying to steal their identity, people trying to steal information from them that's going to make them vulnerable or make them literally a subject of a scam.
Most often, the calls originate overseas, but phone banks here are known to hire convicted felons and desperate students.
We were told to push those people as hard as possible because, one, they said that they were, they're lonelier people. They like to be on the phone in the first place.
They want to get the phone call. They want to talk to someone. And so they want to hear good news. They want a little bit of excitement in their life.
They have a hard time being disrespectful, like, hey, get off the phone. They won't just hang up on you. So you can just keep talking until they give in.
All right, okay. Well, call me back as soon as you can. Okay. All right, bye-bye now. All right, be careful. Bye.
I truly believe he would be here today if it weren't for these people. These horrible people.
It was Satan. That was pure Satan. As a Christian, I know who the force is behind that. I know.
I just really hate these people. I don't know how else to say it, I just don't know how they lay their head down at night and feel good about themselves.
Home ownership, the hallmark of a successful life. But today, that home equity, hard earned by older Americans, is a prime target for fraudsters.
Anyone of a number preying upon the elderly and the vulnerable and trying to literally sell them a bill of goods, which is nothing, and take the house away from them. And the elderly are, inclined to believe somebody who comes and is friendly and offers help.
The number of problems that seniors face are so diverse and so multiple. There's so many of them. You really have to go in on a targeted area and try to figure out the number one issue for that community.
Those issues can involve mortgage rescue scams. For seniors who've built up home equity, reverse mortgages are tempting but complicated. In Los Angeles at the Korean Resource Center, seniors who don't understand English can be targets for fraud. Free community center housing counselors were able to help save Sunjan Choi's home, but not before lawyers and so-called mortgage counselors were paid large fees for undelivered services. In Cleveland, George Robinson faces an altogether different problem.
It was getting to the point that I was getting sick. Doctors say I was stressed out.
A lot of seniors were specifically targeted for refinance during the predatory lending boom. And of course, when somebody shows up at your house and says, hey, I can help you get $70,000, $80,000 to fix your entire house up and make it like new, this seems a little too good to be true.
ESOP, Empowering and Strengthening Ohio's People, helped Robinson save his home investment.
And so I was ready to give up this house. But now, I don't worry about it anymore. It's nice.
For a lot of African Americans, many generations had worked and struggled and labored to get to the point where they owned their homes. To take that value away from that family is stealing from not just that person, but from their parents and their grandparents and their great-grandparents, through the entire struggle of this country.
People sometimes, if they are vulnerable because somebody's sick or they have a need to replace the roof, they might be susceptible to these kinds of ploys.
When illness struck Anita Gardner, it threatened her life and all she had built up from working.
This is the street that I bought my first house in the 70s. I knew everybody in this area, everybody. This was the home that I built, not a house, this was the home. This is where I locked everybody out. This was my world. I was a steel worker. And I developed some sort of brain disorder. It's called Arnold-Chiari malformation. And I had to have a few brain surgeries, and I was incapacitated for a while.
Nita fell behind on a mortgage that was nearly paid in full.
I went and took my retirement money, paid it all up, and they said, okay. Well, I said, can we go back to the regular mortgage? And they said, well, we're going to need some good faith payments.
Those good faith payments were many times higher than the regular payment. Each time she called the company, she dealt with a new representative and new rules.
Well, this good faith payment turned out to be 6 times before I got totally fed up. I decided, okay, I'm going to buy this house outright. And I sent them a certified check for this amount of money.
The company changed the rules again, canceled the deal, and returned her check.
If you're going to scam somebody, or if you're going to go in there and do what you do, you got to make up the rules as you go along. And then here you are, you're not even equipped to play the game because you weren't even notified that this game was going on and that you were just a piece in the game.
Nita went to ESOP for help.
Every solution starts with you being fed up and saying that's it.
ESOP pressured the mortgage company into a fair deal and saved Nita's home.
Don't let them get away with it. Don't let them get away with it.
Deposits by seniors in financial institutions represent 70% of all deposits nationwide.
Okay, there she goes.
And now some of the most reputable banks have created products that profit from those deposits.
When I had to face it, that my bank that I trusted was ripping me off for 5 years, I got awake. I went to the bank and asked them if I could borrow a small loan. And I was told, we don't loan anything less than $5,000. But do you have a computer? Yes, I do. Well, we have a service for our customers that you could use. It's called the direct deposit advance, and you can borrow up to $500.
Annette used a banking product called a direct deposit loan, which uses Social Security checks as collateral.
At the time I started, I was being charged $50 a month for it. This was called a service. I saw my bank doing a service for me. I just kind of settled into this is what I had to do to keep going.
They've held her hostage, basically. They've said, we're going to keep taking half of your Social Security and leave you without enough to make ends meet for the next month unless you borrow from us again. They've designed this.
My bank I trusted. And here's the thing. If I would have thought, okay, I need to make a loan, I think I'll go down to the local strip mall and go to those check cashing places or payday loan places or whatever they call them, I would have never done that.
With all of the mergers, they have gotten farther and farther away from the consumer. So now the way that they make money off of the consumer is not in the deposit loan relationship, it's on the fee generation. So that makes everybody a sitting duck, whether you're a student or a senior, they're going to try and find all the different ways that they can not just nickel and dime you, like, 10 and 20 you and $50 you.
I had never told my kids about it. I never told anybody about it. I just, you just don't worry other people about your finances when you don't have any money to worry about.
There's an incredible shame about having financial difficulties. That sort of internalized shame really stops a lot of us from even asking the question, is what they're doing fair? Do they have responsibility in this?
Forced into a cycle of borrowing for 5 years, Annette paid nearly $3,000 in interest fees on a $500 note.
It has nothing to do with your intelligence or your financial knowledge or any of the above. It's not just me. It's thousands and thousands and thousands of people nationwide.
So it's you against that team of people who've designed these products and kept the system in motion. So if you think that you're going to win, you'd have to be like made of magic to win like that.
Annette spoke up anyway, first at the stockholders meeting where she asked her bank to make a change.
We're going over there, we're going to ask for a payment plan. We've notified some of the top executives. More than likely, the branch manager has never done a payment plan like the one that we're asking for. So we're going to ask, and we're going to hope for the best.
The bank kept the interest, but forgave Annette Smith's loan. Today, 6 U.S. banks continue to offer direct deposit loans.
There's a real challenge here for us to help seniors protect themselves, to understand what the risks are, to take the actions that are needed in order to protect those very important assets.
We need to get to the seniors. We need to tell them, you know, these things are really happening and they can happen to you.
Speak up and speak out, because when you do that, when you tell others, when you report, that gives encouragement to other friends to do the same thing.
Seniors are speaking out at banking roundtables in California.
We're doing a number of sort of meetings like this to learn some of what you think about ways that financial abuse amongst older Americans might be prevented.
No one was asking the older adults themselves, what does age-friendly banking mean to you? So that's what we're doing here.
From the video, was there anything there that you had experienced before?
I won a contest for a $100 gift certificate, but I had to pay $15 to get the gift certificate, and they wanted my credit card, and I told them they were crazy.
What about you, Joy?
I got hit by a hacker.
You did?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
There was 40 of us on a page, and he cleaned all of our accounts out.
Yeah. I didn't ever think anybody would do this to me. No, yes. I thought I was, protected, and I really wasn't.
But another thing that's really important, it sounds like, is for the tellers to know who you are, know your facts, to have a relationship with you.
Like, I know everybody in the bank. I've been there 9 years, and they know me, and I know them.
Our group talked a lot about relatives that take advantage of older people.
Okay. I worked with Social Security Administration for years, and I had a large struggle with them because they believe the first and foremost person to go to is a family member. So many times we saw many just disabled and older adults get very victimized by family.
I got three grandchildren, and I'm watching each one closely to see which one's gonna be the trusted one.
Speaking of people you trust, in the medical field, there are advocates. I wonder if there could be financial advocates as well.
That's a great idea.
It's interesting to learn what people want. It makes so much sense because banks haven't had the best reputation as of late. I think that everyone, not just older adults, but everyone will be pleased to see banks paying attention to the recommendations we find today.
Bank of the West is actively involved in industry efforts to reduce elder financial fraud.
When I came to the bank, I started seeing firsthand elder abuse, financial elder abuse cases coming across my desk. As we sit here in a branch today, if a frontline customer service representative detects and observes activity on the part of an elder customer that is out of the ordinary, they'll engage the elder customer in conversation. Why are you sending this money to Nigeria? Can you tell us a little bit more about this? A high percentage of times that will allow that elder to drop the veil and talk to us about it.
In many states, banks are required by law to report suspected elder financial abuse.
You don't violate anybody's privacy so long as you are reporting what you think is a suspected problem to law enforcement.
It's not a social thing that we don't have to pay attention to. It is a crime.
The best way to guard yourself against scams is to stay engaged in your community, connected to your peers, to trusted organizations, so when a new scam does present itself, there's word of mouth, education opportunities within the community to head it off.
Unless you know it's a legitimate business and someone that you're doing business with, do not share your personal checks with strangers.
The most important thing is for people to not become susceptible to the scam, to not make that payment, and not believe that lie.
Every day, and 2 or 3 times a week, I get things about hearing. I don't have any hearing problem. I've never had any hearing problem.
I'm really excited with the whole idea of we've looked at people that initially are, quote, victims, but over time they resolve their particular scam or their particular situation, and then they mobilize and they help others. It really transforms them. It really sort of in a way turns them from lambs to lions.
You know what? I'm tired of even trying to understand. My thing now is to stop it.
Once a victim, now Nita Gardner works to help other seniors protect their housing investments.
A lot of people who have houses in this community are now retired or seniors, and they can't afford to fix them up. And so what we're trying to do now is find programs to make sure that they get their houses fixed up.
Gardner formed Concerned Citizens and now advocates for seniors and their neighborhoods in housing court.
The housing courts are fighting, trying to figure out ways to keep these people in their houses, keep these communities together.
And Ms. King, do you live in this property?
Yes, Your Honor.
You're an owner-occupant?
Yes.
Mrs. King recently came home from the hospital to find burglars had stripped her home of everything.
This is as dire circumstances I've come across recently, and I want the court to know that. My hope would be is that she's eligible for the selective intervention program, and there may be some assistance that this court could find that may get her in the right direction.
I love housing court. I absolutely love housing court because the judge is just the greatest guy, because he's trying to give the seniors a break because he sees everything.
Annette Smith continues to speak out.
When you want to make changes, people have to know about it.
First, we're going to hear from Annette Smith. She will share her personal experience as a deposit advance customer and the difficulty she's had in getting out of this cycle of death.
The Special Committee on Aging invited me to come and tell my story.
5.5 years ago, I asked my local branch for a small personal loan. In fact, I thought that since banks were required to follow certain laws, they couldn't do what those payday loans people were doing.
We think the charges, the line of credit fees that we charge are very competitive.
I'm just asking you, do you think that it's appropriate for some of the most respected banking names to be making 200% plus off of their customers?
I'm afraid I just can't understand the distinction between how deposit advance has somehow improved Ms. Smith's life over that of going to a storefront where she could have also gotten a payday loan.
I would suspect that there's an educational program that is needed here to alert them to the downsides of these loans.
I'm asking you today to please do something, whatever you can, to stop banks from doing this to other seniors across the country. All those thousands of people that weren't there, I was the one speaking for them, and I had to do it. I had to do it. It was that moment, that time. It had to be done.
7.3 million older Americans have been victimized by financial scams. Change can only happen through communication and collaboration.
We need to build an understanding in the community that there are other helping hands available, that they can go to the Area Agency on Aging, the Council on Aging, the Family Service Agency, trusted community organizations that can help them assess what might seem too good to be true, and in fact is too good to be true.
We got to stop having this be a silent crime. We've got to start standing up and saying, hey, this is wrong. These are resources that are valuable to me and valuable to all of us.
Older Americans can speak out by reporting financial fraud.
Consumer Protection Division, this is Stephanie.
Phone and internet scams, mortgage and identity thefts can be reported to the FBI and the state's attorneys generals.
We get notices about scams all the time, and we have a consumer alert program that goes out to warn people about this is the latest thing we're seeing.
A dynamic partnership of national, state, and local resources is growing into an army for doing good and protecting seniors and their assets.
Everybody's sitting around the table, sharing information and trying to collaborate in the best way that we can to go after these scammers and to really put an end to some of these deceptive acts.
Seniors shouldn't be worried. They should be comfortable. They should be revered. They should be able to spend these last few years or decades with dignity and love and sensitivity and happiness.
Meanwhile, in Indiana, the Liebargers wait for justice.
I mean, we're still cleaning out his condo. We're
working with the attorney, trying to get things settled. And
how many people have to wait, almost half a year after their father died, and they're still trying to pick up the pieces?
I believe that God will give me the faith and the strength to get through it. So I'm not one of these people that says, why me, why me, why me?
I'm just hoping that from this, from all of this, that some kind of justice will come to Jack Lambert. People in America, you gotta listen to this. Kids, parents communicate, talk to each other.
If you see something going on in somebody's life and maybe their children aren't around, let them know.
We were trying to talk to Dad, we should have been talking to each other. That would have helped.
If somebody is asking you for money immediately, step back. If it's that much of a real concern, another day talking to another person that you trust about the situation can make all the difference in the world.
That if we can just prevent one person from being financially abused, just one person, it was worth going out and talking to thousands.
The country's great not because of the buildings or the money. It's great because of the people. Well, guess what? These were the people who made it great.
One person can make a change. One person can make a change. And so I believe that.
Fleeced, speaking out against senior financial abuse, is made possible through the generous support of Atlantic Philanthropies, dedicated to making lasting changes in the lives of disadvantaged and vulnerable people.